Well, very excited to have this conversation right now on agriculture of America. Back in April, Hill Distillery launched their Family Farms First, a new initiative with Farm Rescue to support family-owned farms. And also in April, released the second edition of its grain to glass Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. Here to tell us more about this today. Very, very excited for the conversation again. First with us, he's the executive chairman of Heaven Hill Brands, Max Shapira. Max, it is great to talk with you, sir. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thanks for having us. This is a great project for Heaven Hill, and we'll try to explain what it's all about.
Absolutely. And also from the Farm Rescue side, Terry Johnston, manager of industry engagement for Farm Rescue. Terry, it's good to hear from you again. How are you?
Doing very well, Jesse. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to just start, Max. I'll let you give us some background on the Family Farms First initiative and why it's important to Heaven Hill.
Well, we began the Family Farms First concept thinking that we've been in business for we'll be in business for 90 years come this coming December. All during that period of time, the one thing that we need, amongst others, but one unbelievably important thing we need is great grains as an input for making outstanding whiskey. You know, our company was founded originally in 1935 as a producer of premium bourbon and other American whiskeys. And while today we have a broadly expanded portfolio that goes beyond that, bourbon remains in our DNA. We have about 2 million barrels of bourbon aging in our facilities, which is the second largest supply of bourbon in the world, representing about 12% of the bourbon supply. So that didn't get made by accident, and it's not aging in those warehouses to make quality whiskey by accident. It's the function of the inputs that we put into it, not just the grains, the water, and of course the art of actually making the whiskey itself. So grain, corn, rye, barley, malt are three hugely important ingredients that have to be grown in the right way, that have to provide us with the right kind of starch content, that when we make our whiskey, we turn that into sugars and sugars into alcohol, which is bourbon. And what we thought that over the years, we have dealt with dozens and dozens, probably hundreds and hundreds over a 90-year period of primarily family farmers who work hard, not only to be important to the food supply in general for the country, but certainly for making and growing the quality grain that we need to make a perfectly terrific product for our business. And so what better way than to do this other than go back to family farms? We know that today, I guess like in most industries, there's always a few places where things don't go quite right, for things that are just generally not the fault of the individual or group that are involved. One of which is in the farming business, where I want to say a huge percentage. Somebody told me a number, and I presume it's correct, that well over 90% of all the farms in America, the U.S. family farms, are 90% of the farms in America are family run. That's an unbelievable statistic. We wanted to give back to some of those who are having some difficult times trying to preserve the family farm, not just for today, not just for next month or next year, but for years and years, if not decades down the road. So the opportunity to join with Farm Rescue to be a part of such a project, which is an unbelievable mission that Farm Rescue has, it was pretty much a no-brainer. So we've committed a good bit of money, $100,000 a year over the next 3 years to help support this effort. And that's how we got here. It's just really important that we give back to people who have helped made us who we are today.
Well, and of course, folks who tune in to AOA, they've heard the mission and story of farm rescue before. And we're going to talk to Terry a little bit about that in a second and get his perspective on this partnership. But Max, I would love to ask you just about the second edition of the Grain to Glass that was rolled out in April, and a little more just about the background of how this has been made. And I know that's a really amazing story in itself, Max.
Well, now, in this industry, we can't, it's not like being in the water business where you can turn on a tap and produce bottled water, regular, flavored, or whatever, tomorrow. You have to have a long-term perspective. And so our Grain to Glass project began probably at this point 10 years ago. And at that one point, it was just a figment of our imagination as to, while we've been producing whiskey over the course of many years, we wanted to do something where we controlled all the ingredients, where we got to select the grains, where we got to select how it was going to be grown, when it was going to be harvested, and all the other elements of making something unique, different, and out of the ordinary. And we thought about it, we started researching it, and we found out that we didn't know enough about it to actually do this. So we said, we're going to need some help. Even though we'd been in business for a long time, we still needed some help in selecting grain, growing the grain, harvesting, and all those other elements. So we found ultimately two similar, independent, family-owned companies, just like Heaven Hill is. One, Beck Seeds from up in Indiana, who was a master of understanding the seed business, and we worked with them to develop and to understand what different seed grains would, what kind of whiskey that would make, and we ultimately came to a conclusion. They helped us pick this out, that we found a seed corn that would allow us to produce a bourbon whiskey that was uniquely different than what we had done for many, many years. We then went to since we decided we weren't really farmers and the Max Shapiro couldn't drive a combine down a field, that we better get some help on that as well. And we found another family company in our area, again, going back many, many decades, the Peterson Farm family. And we found the land right close to our facility in Bardstown, Kentucky. They planted the grain of the seed. They watched over it over the course of several months, and then they harvested it. And then we took it from there to grind it, to mill it, to ferment it, to make the whiskey that we then put in a barrel some now 6 years ago. So, it's a bit like I was saying, patience and perseverance are hugely important in what we do. And, at 4 years of age, we could have said, we could bring this to market, but we wanted to wait and wait and wait until we had something uniquely different, not only for what we traditionally produce, which is fine in and of itself, but something that would be uniquely different. And we brought this initially to market last year. We just recently introduced the second version of that, and our Kentucky bourbon. Later this summer, we'll have a wheat-based bourbon and a rye whiskey that we'll be introducing. But for right now, it's the second rendition of the bourbon that we've introduced into the marketplace. So that brings us sort of up to date as to where we are. It's a hugely great project. We love what we're doing, and we're so passionate about this because we really covered all the elements of this ourselves, from selecting the grain, selecting the farming community that was going to grow it for us, and it's been a great project.
Well, and of course, as you mentioned, the added element of supporting farm rescue and supporting those family farms. Terry, I'll ask you for your perspective on the partnership with Heaven Hill and the Grain to Glass series, and obviously the work that you guys are doing, Terry, at Farm Rescue, continuing day in and day out. Talk about this partnership from your side, Terry.
Yeah, well, we couldn't be more pleased, Jesse. As you know, we've also been around a long time. This is our 20th year. Um, we've helped about 1,200 families in that period of time, and of course, the end goal of Farm Rescue is to help a farm family going through a tough time, get them over the hump, and keep them in business through the generations. And so that being our number one goal, what a great fit, with Max and the Heaven Hill folks to keep these family farms in business in the rural community, keep that legacy alive, and we continue to grow. We're preparing for another 20 years, which we're very excited about. And my guess is that the next 1,200 families we help is going to come much quicker than the last 1,200. And we can't do that without the awesome support of folks like Heaven Hill. It obviously is very expensive to help these folks when you take a look at machinery cost and taking good care of our volunteers and making sure they have a place to stay and food to eat and all that kind of stuff. So it's just highly important that we have partners like Heaven Hill that can support us financially and also do the good work of spreading the word, doing things like this. This is just huge for Farm Rescue. We want to make sure that every family farm out there knows we're here, knows how to get a hold of us if they need help or if their neighbor needs help. To refer that family to us. So all critically important to the success of Farm Rescue for our next 20 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, final thoughts again here on this great project. And Max, I'll turn it back to you. Just from your perspective, what else would you add, reiterate to folks, not only about the partnership, but the work you guys are doing with the initiative at Heaven Hill and more? What else would you add for folks listening in today, Max?
Well, I think everywhere today, there's always problems that develop for a variety of reasons. We each, as a society, we need to reach out, help those people in any way we can. In this particular situation, it works closely with our business. Again, we've been successful over the years because the United States of America is a great country in which to do business. But not everything always works perfectly. But we have an opportunity, and I think others probably have an opportunity to help people who are in need, who preserve particularly something like this. A core part of Americana is the family farm. There's nothing more American than that family farm. And as I said before, there's 90% of all, you hear a lot today about corporate farming and whatever, but the facts are that 97% of all the farms in the United States are owned by families. Not all of them have, and some of them have some difficulties along the way. We're out here to help preserve that family farm legacy for years to come.
Well, and I know folks can learn more at heavenhilldistillery.com. They can learn more about the Grain to Glass series and learn more about the initiative as well, the Family Farms First Initiative. And Terry, real quick as well, as far as Farm Rescue goes, I know folks can go online, farmrescue.org, to stay up to date with all the work you guys are doing, right, Terry?
Yes, please do that. Our website has great stories to tell about some of the families that we've helped. Also, folks can give there, they can donate, they can sign up if they need assistance, or can refer a family to us if they know of someone that's hurting. And please help support Heaven Hill's efforts in supporting Farm Rescue. We would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. As again, Heaven Hill is donating up to $100,000 annually for the next 3 years from grain to glass sales. So if you go to your nearest store, I know a lot of our farmer rancher listeners, they like a good glass of bourbon whiskey now and then. And if you look for the box like I have and Mine has been sampled a little bit, so I'm not going to open the box, but you can find that in stores, and make sure you can support the initiative. Great thoughts and really an interesting story. Max Shapiro, Executive Chairman of Heaven Hill Brands. Max, thank you, sir, for the time today with us on AOA. We appreciate it.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
And Terry Johnston with Farm Rescue. Terry, thank you for being with us as well.
My pleasure as always. Thank you, Jesse.